Devil Hunters Chainsaw Man Chapter 170, titled How to Eat Sushi, did one of the biggest reveals that I thought we weren't going to get for the longest time. And without wasting anyone's time, of course we're going to talk about it. Nayuta is dead. Yes. Is there a possibility she could come back? Sure, just like any possibility that there's a 1% chance of anyone coming back. But this is Fujimoto we're talking about. And if you read Fujimoto's works, then you know once he commits to putting someone down, they're most likely never going to come back up. What are the ramifications of this going forward? What does this mean for Denji going forward? Is there going to be a new Reborn Again Control Devil? We have so many questions, but let's go ahead and take it from the top as we begin. As Barum says, to truly appreciate sushi, one should start with lighter toppings and to progress with the richer ones. And yeah, we know what he meant, but Denji, uninterested, tells him to go to hell, but Barum reminds him that cooperation is necessary if he wants to see Nayuta. Reluctantly, Denji ends up eating the nigiri. Next, Barum offers him squid sushi, which Denji eats pretty sloppily, irritating the flamethrower hybrid. Frustrated, Denji knocks over the plates and questions if eliminating public safety members outside would allow him to see his sister. Barum clarifies that public safety, along with the remnants of the Chainsaw Man Church, are after a piece of Chainsaw Man's power. Now, let's go ahead and stop right here, because this is the conclusion most of us have gotten to already. When Denji was in the prison facility, when they were chopping him up to pieces, either to be fed to other devils or for some other crazy experimentation, we don't know, but it's safe to say, and now with the actual confirmation coming out of Barum's mouth, everyone wants to use Chainsaw Man for some ulterior motives. They don't necessarily want to eliminate him, they just want to bring out the true version that we know is the most fearsome and the one that even Quan Chi dares not to challenge, yeah? Which leads into Barum actually saying that Denji's current form as Chainsaw Man is quote-unquote incomplete, and what they actually desire is the Chainsaw Man Devil, capable of erasing concepts from existence. Now, it is a little questionable how Denji doesn't really know about this existence. Like, when I first read it, yes, it makes sense why Denji wouldn't know, because when he lost control of himself back in part 1, when Denji became the Black Chainsaw Man, it was after he relinquished control to Makima, and public safety summoned the Hell Devil to eliminate Makima, and the moment Makima said, "Chainsaw Man, save me," that's when we saw that gruesome moment where like Denji's intestines kind of wrapped around his neck, and then he transformed into the fearsome Black Chainsaw Man. His powers was destructive, it was hard to eliminate him, and although he could take damage from like, you know, something like Angel's weapon, for instance, it's pretty hard to put this Chainsaw Man down. This is also the same Chainsaw Man that went toe-to-toe with all the 7 hybrids, with all 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and the Gun Devil, arguably at 100%, and they were still at a stalemate. So yeah, it's safe to say on why people want this Chainsaw Man to use as their own weapon. But to bring it back to the original point on how Denji doesn't know, you would have thought from the events of part 1 leading into part 2, considering the relationship and rapport that Pochita has with Denji, you'd think there would have been something, even if it was off panel, which I would have been, you know, perfectly content with. If Pochita tells Denji, "Hey, we have a good relationship, I really care about you. By the way, I am quite literally the Chainsaw Man Devil, and my powers go way beyond of the fear of me cutting things down like cutting trees. I can erase concepts from existence." And that's quite literally a fearsome ability to have. And Denji, by the way, I'm sorry, this is why people wanted you so bad in part 1. So I am a little lost that you think the rapport and relationship that Denji would have had with Pochita, that this wasn't elaborated on. And we know Pochita means well. Pochita hid from Denji from opening up that door of what he did to his father in part 1, right? He said, whatever you do, don't open that door. But you think after, again, the events of what happened in part 1, after Makima exploited one of Denji's like vulnerabilities, that this should have been a conversation that Pochita and Denji would have had. I am curious to see what you guys think, if you can challenge me on that otherwise. But if Denji doesn't know about the Black Chainsaw Man, let's go along with what Barum says further in this chapter. As Barum and Denji continue having sushi, Barum explains that summoning the Chainsaw Man Devil requires 2 things: everyone's fear and Denji's unhappiness. He continues by stating that when Denji had that superhero status, it made the public fear of Chainsaw Man almost impossible, but the Fire Devil has since remedied that. And why do I mention the Fire Devil? Because you have to keep in mind that the Fire Devil is the one that made those contracts with the people in the Chainsaw Man Church, right? Like 300,000 or 250,000 people fearing two things: Chainsaw Man and war itself. The war got a huge amp, Denji got a huge amp, but the other part to bring Denji to transform into the Black Chainsaw Man is his unhappiness. Yeah, it correlates to what we saw in part 1, right? We know Makima ultimately controlled Denji when he turned into the Black Chainsaw Man, but before that happened, Denji did take out his sworn brother, Aki. The death of power was also his fault for opening up the door. We know it wasn't his fault, but you know what I'm saying? Like, him coming to that conclusion, right? That power was lost and Aki was lost is all his fault. You add the trauma along with the death of his father, and then, you know, Makima being so good at controlling and manipulating Denji, that's how you get the Black Chainsaw Man. So if a part of this recipe to surface the Black Chainsaw Man is his unhappiness, yeah, it makes sense. And then this is where the tragedy comes, because Barum ends up shouting at the chef from the sushi place to bring up the next plate. And there is some incredible paneling here as everyone in the restaurant just freaks out. They feel shocked. We see Katana Man looking weirded out. We see Asa just get up from her chair. And then you get that double spread of a head coming out. And as I say this, I quite literally have goosebumps because it is one of the most disturbing panels in Chainsaw Man. And that is quite literally saying a lot. And I think it's further enhanced because we know the suffering Denji has been through up until this point, and quite literally Nayuta was one of the last pieces, saving graces that Denji had before losing his absolute shit. And the smug look from Barum's face to see Nayuta's severed head served on a platter, it is really, really messed up. When we can recall what happened to Denji when he transformed into Chainsaw Man when Miyawi and Makima's dogs were gone, I think it was Barum that says, this is going to be a trigger point that's going to turn you into the Black Chainsaw Man. It wasn't. Denji was rightfully angry, and I even said in that review way back in chapter, what, 154 or something like that, 152, that he had the Gohan Super Saiyan 2 moment, right? The red little line struck through his head, the just let go moment, and now he's gonna unleash hell, and now he's gonna be very dangerous. But that didn't do it. To only fast forward into chapter 170, and it seems like Barum knew that, oh, that wasn't enough to twist Denji's to the person that we want to see the most out of him. We quite literally now have to get rid of the last saving grace that Denji had. Look, if you had it on your bingo card that Nayuta was going to die, well, pats on back. I mean, there's nothing really to celebrate about that, but we've said this before. I have said this many times over the course of part 2. Do not be surprised if Fujimoto ends up taking out either Nayuta, either Asa, either Denji, either all three. But without a doubt, one of those three wasn't going to make it. And it really is shocking to see Nayuta go out here because I felt like there was a lot of untapped potential for Nayuta's character. But I think it's going to be more clear on a second reread why Fujimoto ultimately ended up deciding to take Nayuta out right here to see the progression of Denji and, you know, even quite frankly, the narrative going forward for the following events. How is Denji going to come back out of this? And I feel like quite literally it's only going to be Asa and Yoru that is going to tame Denji somehow. And let's talk about Fami for a second because I was a little mean criticizing Fami's character where everyone has a quirk, right? Within the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And Fami, she's a glutton, she likes to eat, and Fujimoto has painted her in this comedic role in the last few chapters for me. But to know that Barum is the second in command and Fami was the first in command, and to know that Fami was the one to tell the group to come to this sushi place, how long ago did Fami meet her demise? And what's really tragic is when we go to chapter 155 where we see that bloody mess of Barum, Nayuta, and the angry riot, and you see this one panel here, and I'm going to show it real quickly, of Nayuta looking in horror with that mob. To know that this was the last time we saw Nayuta and she met a gruesome passing is so devastating. Fujimoto is twisted for this, but to see Nayuta go out like this is really tragic. Again, I really have goosebumps. It's quite literally disturbing to think about. There's a lot to process here. And, you know, one of the other questions I have obviously is, what does this mean for the Reborn Again Control Devil? Because I would argue we have to see another Reborn Again Control Devil. To me, narratively speaking, it doesn't make sense if when we get this Nostradamus prophecy and we see the Death Devil for only hunger and war and the Black Chainsaw Man to all team up against death and not have some type of control devil along the way, right, seems a little, I don't want to say lackluster, but doesn't seem to be complete, right? Like, I would like the three sister horsemen of the apocalypse to team up against the biggest, baddest sister that they have to face, which is the Death Devil, right? So what does that mean for the Death Devil going forward? Here's the other thing. I've always said it jokingly, but half jokingly about where's Kishibe? If there's ever time for Kishibe to come save someone, it's going to be Nayuta in this moment of distress. And look, I really hope Kishibe comes back because it makes no sense that public safety without the loss of Makima, Kishibe hasn't been doing something behind the scenes. But if this quite literally is the demise of Nayuta, it really is tragic and unfortunate that Kishibe entrusted Nayuta with Denji, and when Nayuta had no one else, you'd think it would have been nice and somewhat poetic if Kishibe was the one to rescue her, but that's not the way it panned out, at least from what I'm getting in chapter 170. Guys, this is a wild chapter in Chainsaw Man. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments down below, and we're gonna talk about this some more in the live stream, so if you want to go ahead and click on that video, go ahead and click right here. Take care.